Yesterday we were talking to the Transport Workers Union about something entirely different. When one of them happened to mention, one of the blokes we were talking to happened to mention that they were having I guess an advanced memorial is the best way to put it in Sydney yesterday for the up to 80 people who will die in truck-related crashes on Australian roads this Christmas. I was amazed that first of all, that happened, that they were having the memorial, and secondly, that they could be so accurate and give some idea of what's likely to happen. Thought it was worth following up, talking to Michael Kaine, the Assistant Secretary, the Transport Workers Union. He's on the line. Hello, Michael.
Oh, g'day, Chris. How are you?
Good, mate. It's a very scary number, and it's made more scary by the fact that you can almost predict what's going to happen.
Oh, it's scary and it's tragic. I mean, you think of the people at the end of this holiday season, Chris, who are going to have gone through what none of us wants to go through, and some of us have, of losing someone in such sudden and tragic circumstances. And the sad truth is that, we can't predict the exact number, but on average, between 3 and 330 people die each year in truck-related crashes on our roads. And what we've been saying and what the government realised in the last term was that it's the economic pressures at the top of the supply chain, the likes of Coles, who are squeezing every last dollar out of the companies they use, and that means drivers having to work too long or too fast simply to make a living for themselves and their families. Okay, but I mean, I hear that said, and I know people say that some of the companies push their drivers, but I mean, can't drivers resist that? I mean, surely nothing is worth seeing people die on the roads. Oh, you're quite right. Nothing is worth that, but these workers, and I think many of your listeners would agree, if they really think about it, truckies are really the backbone of our country, I mean, carrying freight from one side of a massive nation to another. Mm-hmm. The real question is, should anyone have to make a choice between, servicing their mortgage, looking after their family, and doing a maintenance on their truck, and changing their tyres this month rather than next? That's a shocking choice, and quite simply, if they don't have the money coming from the companies that are asking for this work to be done, then there is no answer for them. They've got to face that choice, and that's not a choice anyone should have to face. Right.
So what are the things, how does the pressure affect drivers to the point where it causes accidents?
Well, you've got the major retailers and likes of Coles. They control about 35% of the freight in the country. Okay. And we know how powerful they are, whether it's a dairy farm you're speaking to or a veggie grower. They squeeze. The trouble is when they squeeze the transport operators they use, literally people die. And
but how does that happen? I mean, what are the areas that they're being pressured in that causes that?
Well, there's two things. First of all, the economic pressures on the drivers. That is the pressure to keep the wheels going round, paid on a kilometre rate, not paid for the time that they have to wait outside the distribution centres.
So that's okay. And so when you say the pressures there, so they don't get paid while they're waiting, they feel like they need to exceed speed limits?
Well, if you don't get paid for a whole chunk of time while you're waiting, then obviously any wage or money that you paid is completely corrupted, and to actually get up to a livable rate, you've got to keep the wheels going round. Okay. And the other thing is, of course, if you own your own vehicle, there are a lot of owner-drivers in Australia. You own your own vehicle, you bear your own costs, you miss one of these delivery windows set by these major retailers like Coles, mm-hmm. and they penalise you. Okay. There's a financial penalty.
You seem to have it in for Coles. Are they what, worse than anyone else?
Well, at the moment, they're the aggressors. It's not just in transport, it's across entire supply chains. And as I said, it's a deadly recipe when it comes to transport workers and their families. Yeah,
I mean, and it's not, well, I mean, that's true. And I feel terribly sorry for people who die like that. But it also affects, sometimes innocent motorists on the road, Michael. People who are travelling on their holidays with their wife and kids in the car.
Well, when you are travelling on your holidays over the Christmas break or over summer and you see a truck in your rear vision mirror, you want to know that truckie is getting enough money to ensure that they're not having to push themselves on the road, is properly trained, not being pushed to an unrealistic deadline. That's what you want to know. You want to have that confidence, and the Australian community deserves that.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure the Australian community has it though, and that's why I'm asking about what's causing this, and who, if any, who should be doing something about it.
Well, the last federal government put in place a piece of legislation and a new tribunal called the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal, a bit of a mouthful, but the point of that tribunal was to have the capacity to lift some of these pressures off drivers to make sure that those big, powerful economic giants at the top of their supply chains are paying their fair share.
Yeah.
And they're just on the cusp of making its first order. Unfortunately, the new coalition government is saying that it wants to review that body, which is really code for abolish. And we really think this should be above politics. We think that this is perhaps a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to lift the pressures on our truckies, make sure that they're properly treated, and that means that people, and you're quite right, not just truckies, Australian road users are going to have a better chance of returning home safely over these types of seasons.
I mean, anybody who drives the highways, which I do a bit, can tell you stories, and I'll just tell you one, and it was a truckie coming down Cunningham's Gap last time we were coming back from Melbourne that way. And this bloke, fair income, he was out of control, Michael. He was going too fast. He had absolutely no consideration for the motorists around him. And I would hate to think that that was down to, or being blamed on, worse than down to, being blamed on, factors like this that can be fixed.
Well, that's right. We did a survey last year. We've been doing these year on year. And the 2012 survey of 1,000 truckies, which we did in the coal supply chain, we had 46% of respondents saying that they felt pressure to skip rest breaks,
yep.
28% that they felt pressure to speed, this is to make those deadlines, and 26% that they felt pressure to carry loads that were too heavy. Now, people voluntarily responding and putting, these types of pressures that are on them in their job are frightening statistics. So, we call on the community to support the maintenance of this new tribunal. We don't want this to become a political football, Chris. This is well above all of that. We need people's lives to be saved.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, I think that, Michael, that truckies attract a lot of natural goodwill. But it's the one or two who may be in the situation of being forced by these factors we're talking about today, or may just be rogues, I don't know. But it's just the one or two that tend to spoil it for the rest.
That's exactly right. I mean, so yesterday we had 200 truckies and their families coming together, very, some Christmas celebration there, Chris, but really just pausing for a minute and trying to draw attention to the fact that, unless and until we take some action, keep this tribunal in place, let it do its work,
yep.
We're going to continue each Christmas to have to come together to, in advance, remember those people who are going to lose their lives.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the tribunal called?
It's called the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal,
okay.
And its job is to look at the pressures in these supply chains and to make orders to lift those pressures so that drivers don't have to drive too fast or too long to make a living.
Right, we need it. We need it to be working because it was only by the grace of God that no one was killed by that bloke I was talking about a minute ago going down Cunningham's Gap. And apart from the fact that these pressures are real and they force some people, as your survey shows, into these situations, we don't want anything that truckies, the road truckies, can blame for their own bad performance.
It is important to have proper enforcement. Everyone's responsible for their own actions, but the context within which those truckies act, within which they perform their work, it has to be reasonable, and it can't be one that just is a pressure cooker for them to keep the wheels turning round. And if you can get that proper context for them to perform their work, that safe context, then that's the proper way to assess individuals' behaviour.
Yeah.
Otherwise you just can't. You really have to assume that they're under this massive pressure because all of the statistics say they are.
Right. It's good to talk to you, Michael, and we wish you and all the drivers on the road well. And let's, I might find out some more about the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal, see who's on it, and as you say, give it some support because if it can solve some of these problems, then it's worth doing.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Good to talk to you, mate. Take care. Michael Kaine, Assistant Secretary of the TWU, on the issue of truckies and the problems they have on the road.